So let's start with why actually I can talk about AI. I have technical background. My undergrad was in applied mathematics, and I have two masters. One is in social informatics, the second one in project management, and PhD in AI. And also, as I mentioned, I'm here as Balsillie scholar. But also, I hold several positions, like associate professor in National Aerospace University in Ukraine, and some affiliations with MIT, University of Waterloo, Max Planck Institute of Demographic Research, and University of Warwick in the UK. Yeah, and also I'm consulting Ministry of Digital Transformation of Ukraine as the chair of Education and Science Subcommittee of AI Board under the ministry. And especially, I led the development of soft law, of Ukrainian soft law on AI use in higher education. Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have it yet in English, but I believe we'll have it the nearest time. So I translated the title with Nano Banana model. I mean, translation from Ukrainian to English. So, yeah, let's start. The title of today's session was Governing AI in Universities from Global Norms to Campus Policy. But I want to start not with norms or laws, but with students' laptops. If we could look into those laptops during typical study session, what would we see? It's not just PDFs or Moodle. We'd see a second tab open with ChatGPT or another AI tool. The student stuck on an assignment, trying to make sense of a dense article, types a question into the chatbot before they email you or open the textbook. And this is not a niche behavior anymore. In the UK, a national survey for Higher Education Policy Institute and the digital textbook platform Cortext asked over 1,000 undergraduate students about their use of AI. So in 2024, 66% said they used AI tools. 1 year later, in 2025 survey, the number jumped to 92%. So 92%, this is basically everyone. And students report using AI not only to polish grammar, but to explain concepts, summarize readings, suggest research ideas, and even draft parts of assignments. So let me ask you the first big question of today. If almost all students globally are using AI, who is actually governing that practice? Our universities or the platforms? And I'm not only talking about platforms like OpenAI or Google, it's also like TikTok or Facebook or just other social medias and comments. So right now, for many students, the de facto policy is whatever the chatbot allows them to do. And now that's a global picture, but I don't want this to feel like this is happening somewhere else. Let's bring it here to Canada. KPMG in Canada ran a national survey of Canadian students. It was released last month. And they found that 73% of Canadian students now use generative AI tools for their schoolwork. And it's up from 59% in 2024 and 52% in 2023. So again, that's roughly three out of four students. But the more worrying part is how they feel about it. In the same survey, 48% of students said their critical thinking skills have deteriorated since they started using AI. And 66% said that they don't think they are learning or retaining as much knowledge as before. So we had a paradox. They're using AI more and more. They feel it helps them get work done, but they also feel that their learning and thinking may be getting weaker. A second Canadian study gives us more detail on how they use these tools. The Higher Education Quality Council of Ontario surveyed over 500 Ontario college and university students in 2024 about their experiences with generative AI. And here is what they found. Out of 511 students they asked, 402 had used generative AI tools. They mainly used AI for idea generation, research support, editing, and summarizing information, not just to write full essays. And many said AI helped them produce better looking work and sometimes made learning more accessible, especially for students with disabilities or with language barriers. But again, many also worried that they were learning less and become too dependent on the tool. So when we talk about governing AI in universities, we are not talking about some future technology or some abstract policy exercise in, I don't know, Geneva or Brussels. We are talking about tools that most of our students already use, often daily, that they believe are both helping and harming their learning, and that in many cases are guided more by platform design and terms of service than by our academic values. And if you think about your own courses for a moment, in your first year class, what percentage of students do you think have used AI on the last assignment? And in graduate seminars, how many used AI to draft an email to you, polish literature review, or code a quick script? It's questions like to think and to reflect on your students, but the numbers I just shared suggest that if you guess more than a half, you're probably right. And now here is the key point that will guide the rest of the talk. Canada is not an exception. Our students are part of the same global shift, but our policy framework is different and in some areas still emerging. So globally, we see strong signals. UNESCO has adopted the first global recommendations of ethics of AI and specific guidance on generative AI in education and research. In Europe, the EU AI Act is starting to label many education-related AI systems like proctoring, admission scoring, learning analytics as high risks. With strict rules around transparency, data quality, and human oversight. And in Canada, by contrast, our big federal attempt to regulate AI, Bill C-27 and the Artificial Intelligence and Data Act, has stalled. We have useful federal guidance on generative AI for public servants, and we have emerging sector documents like the U15 paper on AI in teaching and learning, but we don't have yet a single clear national AI law for education. So our students are living in a global AI reality while our campuses are still building their local AI rules. And that's why the topic belongs to all of us in this room, not only to IT services or the academic integrity office. AI governance is now part of academic governance. So I'd like us to explore another central question. If AI is now woven into everyday student life, how do we make sure that the rules of that game reflect our academic values? Not just the design choices or a handful of teach companies. And we'll start from the global norms, zoom into Canadian policy landscape, and then work down to a very concrete question, what should go into syllabus, how should we design assignments, how do we protect students' data, and so on. But I want you to keep that image in mind. Your student with two tabs open, the learning management system on one side, and the chatbot on the other side. And the gap between those two tabs, between our formal rules and their real practice, is exactly the space where AI governance has to happen. So let's zoom out from the laptops and look at the rules of the road that are starting from around AI. If you follow AI policy, you know there are a lot of noise. But underneath the noise, there is actually a growing global consensus on a few simple ideas. AI should respect human rights. Humans should stay in control, and systems should be fair, transparent, and accountable. And the clearest expression of this is the UNESCO recommendations of ethics of artificial intelligence adopted in 2021 by 193 members states, and it was actually updated in 2024. And this is the first global standard on AI ethics. It says very plainly, protect human rights and human dignity, make AI transparent and fair, keep humans oversight over important decisions. And it names education and research as key areas where this matters. UNESCO has a whole page on how these recommendations should guide AI in education and science, not only in security or business. So 2 years later, UNESCO went even more specific and published guidance for generative AI in education and research. And if you read the document, a few sentences really stand out. So it says that in most countries, there are no clear regulations yet for generative AI in education. It warns that this leaves data privacy unprotected and many institutions largely unprepared to check or validate the tools students are using. And it lists 8 key challenges and 7 recommended actions for governments and institutions: regulate Gen AI in education, train teachers, build AI literacy, protect children learners, and support public, not just commercial AI use. So from UNESCO, we get a clear message: AI in education is here. You're not ready. And here is a checklist to catch up. The OECD then adds another layer. The OECD AI principles, which were adopted in 2019 and also updated in 2024, and now used by many countries, talk about trustworthy AI. So they say AI systems should benefit people and the planet, not only profit. Be designed in line with the rule of law, human rights, democratic values, and diversity, and include safeguards for human intervention where needed. So the OECD also has a strand of work specifically on AI in education, where they stress risk of bias, the need to protect students' data, and worries that AI might widen inequalities if only some students or schools get good tools. And then, of course, we have the EU AI Act, the first large-scale law to regulate AI by risk level. Actually, they post some of its parts, especially high risks, till 2027. It was last week, I believe. But anyways, EU AI Act creates categories. It's unacceptable risk, like social scoring by governments. They propose to simply ban it. High-risk systems, which are allowed but face strict rules, and limited and minimal risk systems, which have lighter obligations. So why should universities care about this? Because in the EU AI Act, many education systems fall into the high-risk bucket. And if we look at Annex 3 of the Act, it explicitly lists AI used in education and vocational training as high risk. For example, systems that decide on admissions or access on programs, score or grade students in a way that affects their future, run high-stakes proctoring, or drive learning analytics that may label students as at risk or low potential. And for these systems, the law demands risk management and documentation, strict data governance and quality checks, transparency for users, and human oversight, so the machine doesn't have the last word. So if we zoom out, the global picture looks like UNESCO says here are the ethical guardrails, education and research are priority. OECD says AI must be human-centered, fair, and transparent with human intervention built in. And the EU AI Act says if you use AI to make important education decisions, it's high risk and must meet strict requirements. And then we add one more layer. Canada is part of this conversation. We sit in the UNESCO meeting. We help shape the OECD AI principles. We are not watching from the outside. We are in the club. So these values are not just their problems. There's a baseline expectations for us as well. So let's come back to Canada and ask what does our own policy landscape look like. The short version is we have strong statements of interest. We have some guidance, but our big national AI law for the private sector stalled. And you may have heard of Bill C-27, the Digital Charter Implementation Act. It bundled three big things: a new Consumer Privacy Protection Act, Data Protection Tribunal, and the Artificial Intelligence and Data Act, or ADA. And Canada, it's Canada's attempt to regulate high-impact AI systems, including systems used in employment, services, and potential education. For a while, it looked like ADA would be a Canadian version of a EU AI Act. Not the same, but with similar ideas, focus on high-impact AI, set rules for risk management, transparency, and oversight. But in January 2025, Parliament was prorogued. And when this happened, all bills on the order paper died, including C-27. Law firms summarized it bluntly as the demise of ADA left Canada without a comprehensive AI statute, and any new bill will likely look quite different. So at the federal law level, today we have existing privacy laws and human rights laws. Sector-specific rules, like in finance or health, but no final dedicated AI law in force. And that sounds like a gap, and it is, but it doesn't mean that there is no guidance at all. And I am not talking here about a new Minister of AI, because I haven't seen any results yet of that. In 2024-2025, the Treasury Board of Canada Secretariat published a guide on the use of generative AI for federal institutions. This guide is not a law, but it's important because it shows how a public institution is expected to behave with Gen AI, and it says that use of generative AI must be lawful and respect existing privacy and access to information rules. Institutions must be transparent when people interact with AI-generated content. Systems and use cases must be accountable. There should be clear human responsibility for outputs. And sensitive or personal data should not be fed into public generative AI tools unless very strict conditions are met. And even though this guide is written for federal departments, it's a good template for universities that are also public bodies or that want to align with best practices in the public sector. So finally, we have sector-level guidance that speaks directly to our world. In September last year, U15 Canada, it's a group of major research initiative institutes, universities, released a document called Navigating AI in Teaching and Learning, Values, Principles, and Leading Practices. This is not a binding law, but it's powerful because it shows where the leading universities in Canada think the sector should go. And the U15 paper sets our shared values for generative AI in teaching and learning. Things like academic integrity, equity, transparency, inclusion, and accountability. Turn those values into principles for using AI in courses, to be clear with students about what is allowed, design assignments that still measure learning, protect students' data, and involve students in policy discussion. And also it gives examples of leading practices from different campuses, concrete cases, not just slogans. So if we put all this together, what do we see? Globally, we have strong norms. In Canada, we have partial regulation, growing sector guidance. And the natural next question, and the question for the rest of the talk is, how does all of this actually show up in the lecture halls and labs. How do UNESCO principles, EU-style risk language, and Canadian guides translate into policies for our course outlines, our assessment design, and research supervision? That's where we'll go next. And let's come back to one of the slides I've already shown. If you remember just one number from the global picture, let it be this. In the UK, the latest student-generated AI survey 2025 found that 92% of students now use AI tools for their studies. And that's up from 66% just 1 year earlier. So the report says that students mostly use AI to explain concepts they don't understand, to summarize articles and chapters, to suggest research ideas, and in a smaller but important share of cases generate text that goes straight into assignments. So globally, we are no longer talking about early adopters. We are talking about normal practice. For students, AI is turning into another study tool like Google Search or Wikipedia, just more powerful and more opaque. And now when use explodes this fast, academic integrity questions follow. There is a wave of research right now looking at generative AI and academic integrity in higher education. And the pattern is quite consistent. Systematic and narrative reviews find that generative AI can enable new forms of plagiarism and contract cheating by prompts. So you ask the model to do the work for you. And at the same time, the same tools can support learning when they are used for feedback, for scaffolding and practice inside a clear pedagogical design, as we learned several weeks ago. Another important question to talk about is AI generation, AI detectors. Several studies and reviews have a very blunt message. Current AI detection tools are not reliable enough for high-stakes decisions. Recent paper that reviews AI and plagiarism detection concludes that many detectors are unreliable, biased, and misaligned with educational goals, and argues for shifting from detection to better assessment design. And other analysis of Turnitin-style tools highlight false positives and false negatives, which means you can accuse honest students or real misuse. And we are already seeing real-world scandals. For example, at Australian Catholic University, students were only accused of robot cheating, so-called, based on an unreliable AI indicator, leading to months-long investigations. The university later dropped the tool. So we have attention that students are using AI a lot. Universities worry about cheating, but the tools we have to catch cheating are shaky and can themselves cause harm. And this is the global reality. So again, if you are teaching, I don't recommend to use AI detectors because they don't work. So let's come back to Canada. Because our students are living in the same reality. So again, I'm coming back to KPMG Canadian survey from October 2025 because it gives us a very clear picture. They surveyed 684 students across universities, colleges, high schools, and vocational institutions. And out of that number, 73% of Canadian students said they use generative AI for their schoolwork. And that's up from 59% in 2024. So again, it's 3 out of 4 students. But the worrying part is another. In the same survey, they say that almost half of students said their critical thinking is getting worse because they learn on AI, because they lean on AI, sorry. And about 2/3 said they feel they're learning or retaining less knowledge than before. And it means that we have better results, but less learning. So Canadian students are not only using AI a lot, they are worried about what it does to their own minds. Another study from Ontario is our second mirror. They surveyed last year 500, more than 500 post-secondary students about Gen AI and learning accessibility. And among them, more than 400 students had used generative AI, and they mainly used it for brainstorming ideas, understanding course material, summarizing information, and editing their writing, not only to generate just full essays. So students reported that generative AI often improved the quality of their work, sometimes made learning more accessible, especially if you are not speaking English as a first language, and also raised worries about our reliance and shallow learning. So if we put the global and Canadian picture side by side, what do we see? The global pattern is that almost all students use AI, mostly to save time and improve quality, but institutions are scrambling to adopt. The Canadian pattern, 3 out of 4 students use AI. They feel both helped and harmed by it, better assignments, weaker critical thinking, and less retention. And the integrity pattern, research warns that simply adding an AI detector to the learning management system is not a solution, it's a risk in itself. So if the global numbers from HAPPY report and the Canadian KPMG and Ontario data are even roughly right, then for many large writing-heavy or STEM courses, the honest answer is that probably most of your students are using generative AI. And that leads us to the next part. If this is what students are actually doing, how should we govern AI? AI use in teaching, in assessment, in research, not just to catch misconduct, but to protect learning and fairness. So let's move into the how part, what I like to call the 4 pillars of governing AI on campus. Think of this as a simple mental map. If we touch all 4, we are in much better shape than if we only chase cheating or only talk about tools. So let's start with the one that keeps many of us up at night, academic integrity. Globally, if you look at university responses over the last 2 years, there has been a clear shift. We started with ban it, then we tried detect it with AI detectors, but now more and more universities are moving to permit with guardrails and redesign assignments. In the UK and the US, we can see a pattern in teaching centers and policy statements, more weight on in-class writing, oral exams, project defenses, reflective journals, and process portfolios, and less faith in upload the essay to a detector and trust the score. Australia regulator TEXA has even framed this as an assessment reform, not just misconduct control. They published generative AI and academic integrity and assessment reform report and launched the hub for that. And they tell universities to rethink how they assess learning, not lean flaved detection tech. So the global direction is to move from catching cheaters to design and assessments for a world with AI. So now, what does it look like in Canada? First, at the sector level, we have the U15 Canada guide, which I already mentioned. This document is quite clear about the core values that should shape AI use, like academic integrity, equity and inclusion, transparency, alignment with learning outcomes and student well-being. It then gives practical examples of how those values can show up in course policies and assessment design. For example, where AI is allowed for idea generation, but not for full answer writings. At the institutional level, we already have concrete tools. For example, University of British Columbia has a generative AI syllabus language page on its academic integrity site with sample sentences for different stances. For example, AI use is not permitted in Z course. AI may be used for X and Y, but not Z. AI is encouraged as a partner with these limitations. So it strongly recommends that instructors spell this out in the syllabus and even suggest posting it as a Canvas and announcement at the beginning of the term. Another example is the University of Toronto. They launched an AI task force and a teaching with generative AI resource hub. It offers guiding principles, a list of questions to ask before using AI in your course, and very practical tips for adapting assessment while staying within the code of behavior on academic matters. So how do we use this pillar in our own teaching? I'd like to leave you with two questions to reflect on, maybe even jot down an answer. The first one is, should we have a clear institutional default, a house style on AI in coursework, or do we want to leave everything to course-by-course discretion? And the second one is, what is our position on using AI detectors in grading? Are we comfortable making major decisions about students' futures based on tools that research over calls unreliable or biased? And those two answers alone will say a lot about how serious we are about academic integrity in the AI era. So the second pillar is less visible to students, but just as important, what happens to the data. Globally, both UNESCO and the EU AI Act puts a lot of weight on this. They stress that AI systems in education must respect privacy, data protection, and human rights, and warns against opaque black box models, like data sources, and uncontrolled sharing of student information. So now let's connect this to the Canadian context. We see it under Personal Information Protection and Electronic Document Act and provincial privacy laws. And we now have a dedicated guide on the use of generative AI from the Treasury Board of Canada Secretariat for the Federal Institutions. And that guide is short, but actually very practical. So it says, among other things, don't put confidential personal information into public generative AI tools unless you have a very solid legal and technical basis. Keep human beings in the loop and clearly accountable for outputs, and be transparent when AI is used to produce or shape content. Even though it's written for departments, universities can use it as a ready-made checklist. So let's make it more concrete. There are things that should not be pasted into random chatbots or free AI helpers, and I mean like ChatGPT or Gemini and so on. The first one is gradebooks or lists of student marks. Then notes from academic advising sessions, disability or accommodation letters, and research data that is not already public. And we are also seeing strong marketing pressure to turn on AI features in learning management systems, proctoring tools, early alert, and analytics dashboards. And each of those should trigger some kind of review, not just a toggle switch. And in the public sector, there is a concept called an algorithmic impact assessment. In higher education, we might call it a risk review, like what data will the system see, who owns the model and the logs, and can we explain to a student how a decision was made. And those, again, are not only IT questions, they are governance questions. So let's move on to the third pillar. The third pillar is research, where AI is starting to appear everywhere, starting from idea generation and literature review to coding, data analysis, and manuscript drafting. So here again, there is a strong global warning sign. In July this year, Australia's university regulator TEXA warned that AI chatbots are poisoning data and creating serious risks for research integrity. And their guidance lists risks such as training models on untrusted or biased data, AI systems inventing or distorting references, and breaches of copyright or privacy when models have been trained on proprietary content. So they also suggest fixes, and they are quite old school. So it's stronger oral exams and defenses for theses, detailed AI use declarations in research, and updating research integrity codes to say very clearly what counts as acceptable AI use. Sorry. So if we move to Canada, our three big federal funding agencies, CHR and CERC, and the third one for social sciences, sorry, I don't remember the name. Yeah. So they have issued joint guidance on the use of artificial intelligence in the development and review of research proposals. And they have also a very simple but important message. Researchers may use generative AI to help draft or edit proposals, but applicants and reviewers remain fully responsible for all content. So again, as we discussed like 2 weeks ago, you can use any tools, but anyway, you are putting your name on it, and you are the one who is responsible for the result, for any misconducts or academic integrity violations. Also, they said that researchers must protect confidential and personal information and not paste sensitive proposals into public tools. And AI systems cannot be listed as authors or co-applicants. Only humans can take responsibility. It's also a very interesting thing because when ChatGPT 3 was launched in late 2022, a lot of papers were listed co-authoring with ChatGPT, which are now retracted. Some of them are retracted, some of them are in the process of retraction or changing the authorship. But anyway, you can go to Scopus database and find the author page for ChatGPT, which is quite interesting. So on campus, universities are starting to echo this guidance by research agencies. Many graduate schools across Canada are now moving toward AI disclosure statements in theses, like a short note explaining where, if at all, AI was used and confirming the student remains the author. So the principle for this pillar is AI can assist, but it cannot carry the moral and legal responsibility for research. Humans still sign the ethics forms. Humans still answer when when anything goes wrong. And the last pillar is the one that often gets the least attention, but may matter the most in the long run, how we build capacity to use AI well. So global bodies like UNESCO or the OECD keep repeating the same points. We need AI literacy for students and staff. We need teacher training on how to use AI in teaching. And we need to think about equity and inclusion so AI doesn't deepen gaps. And this is not just about rules, it's about skills. And actually, the Ontario report, which I already mentioned, also supports that, and it's a great Canadian example of this pillar. Because their study found that generative AI can help students understand course materials, brainstorm ideas, summarize long text, and edit writing, especially for students with disabilities or for whom English is not the first language. But many students and staff avoiding AI because they're not sure what is allowed, what is helpful, what is harmful, or how to use AI without hurting their learning. And the report's main message is that if we want AI to improve accessibility, we need clear guidance, shared literacy, and collaborations between students, instructors, and support staff. And on the infrastructure side, we also have a good Canadian example. The Taylor Institute for Teaching and Learning at the University of Calgary runs an artificial intelligence teaching and learning support hub. It brings together workshops, example policies, and links to external resources like UNESCO AI Competency Framework for Teachers and Students and the U15 Guide. Also, University of British Columbia, University of Toronto, McMaster, and others have similar pages and workshops, not to promote AI blindly, but to help instructors experiment safely, share examples, and learn from each other. So this pillar is about capacity, not just about control. And if we only tighten the rules but never help people learn how to use AI well, we get students who hide their AI use. We'll get staff who feel lost or left behind, and the widening gap between policy documents and daily practice. But if we invest in capacity, like workshop or sample assignments, peer exchange, or other like AI literacy modules, we give ourselves a chance to shape how AI is used, not just react to it. And if you think about like the place where you studying or teaching, which pillar feels stronger right now, and which one feels like a gap. Most institutions I talk to say we have started to talk about cheating. We have not really started to talk about capacity. And that gap is exactly where our work for the next several years will sit. So now I want to move from frameworks and pillars to some stories because policies feels abstract, but cases are concrete. So let me walk you through several snapshots of how universities and systems are actually responding to AI. First, a story from the US. In 2025, Duke University launched a big pilot with OpenAI. So all Duke undergrads, staff, faculty, and many grad students got free access to ChatGPT for all through a university license. At the same time, Duke launched Duke GPT, a university-managed AI interface that sits between users and commercial models. What's interesting is how they frame that pilot. They are not saying AI is banned or AI is the future of everything. Instead, they're asking, we will give our community secure, they're saying, sorry, we will give our community a secure private access to strong AI tools. We will protect data by routing use through internally controlled gateways. And we will treat this as a research and governance project. A provost initiative will study how AI affects learning, assessment and equity, and report back with recommendations. So Duke is doing three things at once. The first one is access, making sure students and staff have powerful tools. The second one is protection, using an internal platform to reduce data risk. And the third one is learning, using the pilot to collect evidence and shape policy. And this is one model governed by piloting with guardrails, not by banning. Now let's go almost to the other end of the spectrum. A strong regulator-driven model. Australia has a national higher education regulator called TEXA, the Territory Education Quality and Standards Agency. And over the past 2 years, they have become very vocal about AI, academic integrity, and research integrity. So a few examples. Their Gen AI Academic Integrity and Assessment Reform Hub tells universities that AI-assisted cheating in digital exams is all but impossible to detect reliably, and urges a move toward more secure and authentic assignments, such as oral exams, oral presentations, supervised practical tasks, and in-person exams. Their guidance note on academic and research integrity frames generative AI as a risk to both academic honesty and research quality, and calls on institutions to update their integrity policies and train staff. And they have also produced a Gen AI strategies for research training toolkit, which covers induction, research process, thesis examination, and grant applications. Again, with a focus on disclosure, critical use of AI, and oral examination of work. So while Duke University is experimenting from the inside, TEXA is pushing from the outside. And their message to universities is don't rely on AI detectors for high-stakes decisions. Redesign assessments to make independent work visible, and build AI use declarations and oral checks into research training and thesis exams. And this is another model, regulator with teeth. Reform your assessment or your quality may be questioned. Now back to Canada. We don't have a Texas-style national regulator for universities. Instead, we see sector-level coordination. As I mentioned, in September last year, U15 Canada published an interesting report. And this document does a few important things. Firstly, it sets shared values for AI in teaching and learning across U15 group. Academic integrity, equity and inclusion, transparency, accountability, and student well-being. Secondly, it turns those values into principles. For example, designing assessments that still evaluate learning in a meaningful way, even when AI is available, and making course-level expectations about AI use explicit. And thirdly, it offers leading practices, short case examples such as simple syllabus language, staff development initiatives, students partnerships, and policy design. Yeah, and also we have some examples from universities across Canada, like University of Toronto and their AI task force. So this is a different governance style, collaborative sector framework to agree on values and share examples and let institutions adapt to their context. It doesn't have the force of law, but it shapes expectations, and it gives deans, provosts, and teaching centers something to point to when they say, here is what good practice looks like. So putting these cases side by side, they represent three broad governance styles. Firstly, regulator-driven, like Texas, strong external pressure, clear expectations and real consequences. Secondly, collaborative sector framework, like U15, shared values, evidence examples, institutions retain flexibility. And third, ad hoc or local pilots like Duke GPT and a lot of other universities, actually. The pockets of innovation that may or may not yet connect to a full institutional strategy. So is that what we want to look in 3-5 years, or do we want to move along the for our spectrum? And let's move to the final part of the talk. And I'll suggest a simple 5-step roadmap to help us do that. So first step is to get a realistic picture. Globally, the message from surveys and regulators is don't write policy for an imaginary campus. Write it for what people actually do. And our version for step 1 could be a short internal survey of students and instructors, a quick AI inventory in your faculty, where is AI built into learning management system add-ons, advising tools, early alert systems, and the conversation with your teaching and learning center, what patterns are they seeing? And actually without this map, every later decision is a guesswork. Step 2 is about principles and guardrails. Globally and in Canada, we already have strong signals. It sets sector-wide values: academic integrity, equity, inclusion, transparency, accountability, student well-being, and so on. And it shows examples of how this show up in teaching and assessment. It says you may use AI to help draft, but you remain fully responsible. Don't paste confidential data into public tools. AI can be author or applicant. So in step 2, we might literally write, we adopt the values of UNESCO or OECD or some other bodies, and we align it with, for example, U15's principles and tri-agency guidance. And that gives you moral and sector backing when you say no to some users and yes to another one. Step 3 is put someone in charge of thinking about this. Around the world, we see this taking shape as AI task force, working groups, or standing committees under Senate or academic council. For us, step 3 could be formalizing an AI governance committee or subcommittee on teaching, learning, and research with faculty from different disciplines, teaching and learning center, IT and privacy, library, and the most important, at least one student. And their job is not to write a huge policy. Their job is to review use cases and pilots and update guidance and actually connect the dots between global norms, our local Canadian frameworks, and local practice. Step 4 is where things become very visible for students. What do we actually tell them? The idea is to have layers. The first one is institutional level principles and red lines. The second one is faculty or department expectations. The third one, course level rules in syllabus and assignment sheets. So we might decide at the institutional level, for example, students may not use generative AI where assignments explicitly say no outside assistance, or students' work must be their own. AI can never be listed as a co-author. At the course level, you can use templates also actually from other universities to create a simple AI section in every syllabus. For example, AI is allowed, AI is not allowed, AI assisted, writing is allowed, and so on. Actually, I saw that already in University of Waterloo. When you are generating syllabus for your course, you can just click to different types of rules for generative AI. So this layered approach means the student doesn't have to guess. They see consistent signals across courses, but instructors still have room to adopt. And last step, this is not a one-off project. Global bodies and international organizations keep repeating that AI in education is not just about rules. It's about skills. It's about capacity for teachers and students. And Canadian evidence actually points it the same way. So step 5 has two parts. First part is invest in people by regular workshop on AI for teaching and assessment, by modules on micro-credentials on AI literacy for students, or by support for departments that want to pilot new AI-aware assessments. And the second one is commit to an annual review. Like once a year, your AI governance group will look at new global norms, new Canadian guidance, and local data. And then they adjust the guidance and share updates with faculty. And that way, AI governance becomes part of our normal academic planning cycle, not a crisis response. So again, here is 5-step roadmap for you to remember. Yeah, and the last question I want to leave UV is not a question, but a message. It's govern the tools, protect the students, and keep learning humans. Thank you.